Women, what is your worst nice guy experience? A random guy held my crutches for me as I walked down some stairs at uni. He seemed nice and joked about how he once broke a foot. It'll get better, etc., etc. We get to the bottom, and he asks if we could get some coffee. I thank him, but tell him I'm seeing someone, so he just drops my crutches on the floor and walks away.
I guess it was a nice gesture at first. The guy helping you out shows there's still some kindness in the world. But it's funny how quickly things can turn. One moment, he's all supportive, and the next, he's just gone because of a simple, honest comment. It's a reminder that not everyone takes rejection well. Just a weird turn of events, really.
A guy friend in junior high. We had several classes and sat next to each other, platonic, loyal friends for 2 years before he got weird. He was hilarious. We could talk about anything. His house had a pool, so during warm weather a bunch of us would swim at his house after school. One day he invites me over to swim after school. When I get there, no one else is there, which was weird. He was splashing me, sort of aggressively flirting, dunking me, so I get out of the pool and he pins me down to kiss me. So I play it off as joking and leave. I give him the cold shoulder after that, and he was pissed. 2 weeks later, and at a different friend's house, he and I are both there for a swim birthday party, and he and another guy give me a simultaneous front and back seesaw, which is like a horrible double wedgie in the pool. My swimsuit cut me so badly I bled. I hate you, Pat.
That's a wild story. Sounds like your friend just flipped the script on what you thought was a solid friendship. It's rough when someone you're close with suddenly acts differently. The pool moments were fun until that kiss. Guess he took it way too far. And the seesaw incident? That's just messed up, bleeding from a wedgie. Not cool at all. Pat really turned things upside down for you.
I was 16 and quite lonely, so I posted something on Tumblr so people would message me. I added a 26 years old guy from New York. I am from Switzerland, so time zones are different. In my mind, it was clear, and it seemed obvious that I didn't want anything romantic as we had 10 years of difference, and I told him that I only wanted a friend. Well, after messaging for a while, he told me he had to go to sleep and made me promise to continue to talk to him once he woke up. Weird, but whatever, I thought. A few hours later, he messaged me and talked about how he wanted me to be his girlfriend and so on. I told him again that I was only looking for a friend. He lost it. He began insulting me, telling me I lead him on, even though I told him I was only looking for a friend when we first talked. I ended up having to block him because I couldn't get him to calm down or to understand that I didn't want to talk to him anymore. I never made another post to meet new people online after that.
That sounds like a frustrating experience. It's tough when someone doesn't take the time to understand boundaries. You clearly communicated your intentions, but he let his expectations run wild. It's a lesson learned, I guess. Online interactions can sometimes go sideways, especially with big age gaps. Blocking him was probably the best move. One bad experience shouldn't stop you from connecting with people, but I get why you'd be hesitant.
Became friends with this guy in college. After graduation, he got a job and moved in with his girlfriend about an hour's drive from where I was in grad school. I drove out one Saturday to see him, did some cool things, grabbed some food. He waited until his girlfriend was in the bathroom before he told me the following. My boyfriend probably had a low sperm count due to his profession, and if I ever wanted a family, he'd always be willing to take me back, even though we'd never been together. Yeah, haven't seen him since. Edit, for those who are having a hard time parsing this. Nice guy says MY boyfriend probably has low sperm count, offers to start family with me. Also, thanks for gold.
That's an interesting situation. It's always surprising when friends drop unexpected personal matters like that. It sounds like he might have misread his friendship with you. I can see why you'd want to step back after that. Sometimes people just don't realize how their words can affect others. Keeping distance makes sense, especially when things get complicated. It's better to leave those things in the past.
I have a reproductive issue. It won't kill me, but for the most part, I can't have kids. I had confided in a male friend of mine about some of the sadness I was having over it, coupled with a bad breakup I had just gone through, and he tried to cheer me up by saying, "But you're perfect." I was confused, so I asked him to elaborate. "You're hot. You look like Black Widow. You're funny, and you can't ever get pregnant. Look, I wouldn't want you." When I told him that wasn't a compliment, he told me that I'm too much of a social justice warrior to see when a real gentleman pays me a compliment.
It's wild how people can try to help but miss the mark. That friend probably had good intentions, seeing the bright side of things. But his take didn't really land right. Sometimes, comments about looks and life situations don't translate into support. It's a reminder that being sensitive to what someone is going through is key. It's not just about being nice. It's about understanding the context too.
I was dating this guy, really nice, we move in together. Awesome. He expects me to cook all the food, buy all the groceries, take care of all the bills, and do all the housework. He occasionally takes a break from his busy schedule of drinking beer and watching sports to tell me I need to go to the gym/stop eating. I wear a size 2. He also criticizes my housekeeping abilities and constantly tells me how poorly my parents raised me. I'm a successful woman with a master's degree. He barely graduated high school and has never had anything other than an entry-level non-skilled job. The kicker, he told me he was just being nice and trying to help me because he cared so much about self-improvement. Needless to say, we're no longer together.
That's a rough situation. Sounds like he had some pretty outdated ideas about relationships. It's tough when someone's expectations don't match your reality. You deserve to be with someone who respects you and shares responsibilities. It's good that you recognized those red flags and moved on. A successful woman shouldn't have to deal with that kind of negativity, especially when you've worked hard to get where you are. Glad you're free of that.
I was drunk and walking back to my dorm when I ran into a guy who lived on the opposite end of my freshman hall. We walked back, and he got me water and aspirin for the hangover and suggested we grab breakfast at a coffee shop in the morning. Come morning, I run into him on my way to the bathroom, and we make plans to grab a quick bite, during which I casually mention my boyfriend was visiting at the end of the semester. He immediately gets up and leaves. I finish my food, paid the bill, and passed him aggressively whittling a dagger. With the door open as I walked back to my room with his uneaten leftovers. Didn't acknowledge me for the rest of the year despite living 8 doors down. Weird dude.
That's an odd situation. You meet someone, they seem cool, and then things take a turn. It's strange how quickly people can change when they feel threatened or uncomfortable. The dagger thing is definitely something. It's like you went from potential friends to complete silence in no time. Bet that made living near him awkward for the rest of the year. Just goes to show how unpredictable people can be.
I used to be a nice guy. The thing is, I have mental issues. Depression, anxiety, paranoia. Never try to deal with someone who says they're a nice guy. I'm no longer one, but that's after years of therapy and being on meds for just as long. If a nice guy says he's reformed, always be cautious. Looking at the girls I creeped out back then, and how I creeped them out, if I were them, I would not trust me, judging from those experiences alone. Even if I can say now that I'm a different and better man, I will never expect anyone who I've creeped out to believe me. And they are justified. Anyone who's had to deal with a creepy nice guy, cut him off immediately. It's not worth the stress or discomfort he will bring you.
It's good you're aware of your past and how it affected others. A lot of people don't see the harm they cause. Therapy can really help change perspectives. It's tough to expect forgiveness or trust after being creepy, and it makes sense if people aren't ready to accept that you've changed. Better to focus on self-improvement and respectful relationships now, rather than trying to convince others of your progress.
I went to a pretty small college in northern Colorado. My freshman year, I befriended a nice guy named R. or ended up pledging with a fraternity. I went on a couple of dates with a guy from ours, for I thought things were going well. Then the guy I dated just stopped responding to me. A bunch of other people involved in the Greek community, and lots of people in my dorm started giving me funny looks, or conversations would end as soon as I came in the room. Apparently, I was pissed that I wasn't dating him, so he told everyone I had AIDS. I ended up transferring schools because of that guy.
That's a tough situation. It's crazy how quickly rumors can spread, especially in small communities. Losing friends over something false is rough. Transferring must have been a big decision, but sometimes you have to choose your environment. Hopefully, the next place was better for you. Sounds like you learned a lot from that experience.
I've always been a tomboy and grew up with a lot of male friends. Since reaching adulthood, I've also grown some breasts. This combination of things has led to most of my best guy friends asking me if they could finally see my tits since we've been friends for so long, and subsequently vanishing when I said no. It's depressing enough when I realize that a guy I'm into just wants to bang, but it really hurt when the guys I thought were actual human beings, with whom I developed deep multi-year friendships, were just sexually frustrated animals. So yeah, I got some trust issues now.
It's rough when friendships get pushed aside for something like that. You think you know someone, and then they show their true colors. It can make you second-guess your connections. Just goes to show that not everyone values friendship the same way. Trust can take a hit, but it's important to remember there are still genuine people out there. It's just about finding them.
Honestly, the worst nice guy experience I ever had was in middle school, so we were maybe 12 or 13. I was friends with this kid. He was kind of small, kind of awkward, but we got along and we talked in science class and gym. He gave me an anonymous note, although from the nature of its content, I could tell it was from him. It said that he was very shy, but said it'd be really great if I could call him one time, and the note gave me his number. Not being interested in dating at the time, and sort of figuring where this was going, I didn't comply to avoid an awkward situation. Later in the year, we were both in a production play, and when it had finished, he and I were standing in the line getting ready to go out and bow. This required us to hold hands, so as soon as I put my hand in his, he grabbed my pinky and started to sharply twist it. Nearly friggin' broke it. That day, I suspected the relationship wouldn't have gone too well. /. Even the kids, man, sheesh.
That's a weird middle school moment for sure. It's tough navigating friendships at that age. It's like he couldn't handle being rejected and then it turned into something bizarre. The whole hand-holding thing should have been simple, but obviously wasn't for him. Those years can be awkward, and it seems like he didn't read the room well. Glad you didn't have to deal with more of that. Just a strange time overall.
Guy, but I've got a gay nice guy pseudo-stalking me at the moment. Randomly friends me on Facebook after we've briefly interacted twice. Friends of friend scenario. Then tracks me down at work to ask me why I haven't accepted his friend request. Shows up at my place of work every day. I work on campus, so it's not like he drives somewhere, but still, to hang out. Follows me around while I'm out on a ticket while saying things like you're off right now, so it doesn't matter, and ignoring me when I say I'm not off, aggressively hugs me out of nowhere, tells me we're hanging out or he's giving me a ride home or whatever. Sometimes randomly brings up that his family bugs him about his being single and reminds me that he's gay. Honestly can't tell if he wants to friend me, fuck me, or kill me.
That sounds pretty uncomfortable. Having someone show up like that can be really unsettling, especially when you're just trying to do your job. It's tough when someone doesn't take a hint. You're in a tricky spot trying to figure out what they want, and it's hard to set boundaries if they keep crossing them. Hopefully, he gets the message soon and gives you some space.
My high school boyfriend said all the right things, made me fall in love with him, made my family fall in love with him, married me, gave me the white picket fence house, 3 kids, typical American dream. Everything was perfect, or so I thought. Fast forward 6 years, he ghosted on me and the kids, ages 6, 4, and 1, with my best friend. They're now married, and he's signed away his parental rights to the kids. He just straight up dumped us all to start a new life with my, now ex-best friend. He sees the kids just often enough to open the wounds when they heal. He claims he's a nice guy, but he had to follow his heart, and she just didn't want kids, even though she has one of her own.
That's a tough situation. It's wild how things can seem perfect and then fall apart. You invest so much into a relationship, trusting someone completely, only to end up feeling betrayed. It's not just about losing the partner, but also the life you thought you had. Watching someone move on with your friend must hurt even more. You just have to focus on yourself and the kids, even when it's hard.
Met Bill at a friend's party. There was definite attraction, so we started dating. We really had fun. It seemed like we could make a good life together. After a year together, he asked me to move in with him, and it looked like a good idea. The first night in his house, he had me by the front of my shirt up against a wall, laying down the law about how things would be from now on. It's like the niceness was a front to get me exactly where he wanted me, under his roof and his rules. He seemed to think that he now owned me. That sure didn't work for me. I packed up and got out within days.
That's a tough situation. It's wild how quickly things can change once you move in with someone. You think you're building a life together, but suddenly it feels like control. Good on you for recognizing that and getting out fast. Not everyone has that strength. It's important to stay true to yourself, especially in a relationship. People can surprise you, and not always in a good way.
I actually have a story of a recovered nice guy. Years back, he and I became friends. We weren't really close, but we got along and chatted regularly. One day, he tells me I'm the most amazing woman he's met and has loved me the whole time, blah, blah, blah. I told him I didn't feel the same way, and he got angry, cursing me out, etc. I was upset. I really like being friends with this dude, and while I understood our friendship mightn't be exactly the same after, I didn't think I deserved to be used for not being in love with him. Anyway, fast forward to a couple of years ago, and I see him at the shops. We wave to each other, but don't speak. Later I get a message from him, and we start chatting back and forth. Then he's saying something like, "I want apologies for how I treated you back then. I'm sorry I ruined our friendship, and you didn't deserve my reaction. Hope we can make amends. While our friendship will never be the same, it was really nice to get an apology."
That's an interesting story. It's cool that he reached out to apologize after all that time. People can really surprise you sometimes. It's not easy to confront past mistakes, and it's good to see he recognized his behavior. Even if things aren't like they used to be, it sounds like there's some closure now. It's nice that you could still connect, even in a different way.
Gentlemen, if you're interested in a lady, say something. We aren't psychic. See, this is something I learned early on. If you want to be friends, be friends. If you want something more, it's better to say it early, where if you were rebuffed, it's not that big a deal, as you're not emotionally invested in it. It's such a simple thing to do, especially if you're already friends for a few weeks. Hey, I'm just going to throw this one out there. Do you fancy having dinner on Friday? Just you and me, like on a date. It also works the other way too. Girls, if you're interested, let me know.
This makes sense. I've had a friend who liked a girl in our group. He kept it to himself for weeks, stressing about it. Finally, he just asked her out. It turned out she felt the same way. Simple communication saved a lot of drama and anxiety. It's all about being upfront. Being direct can feel awkward, but the outcome is usually worth it. Definitely a lesson learned there.
Yours reminded me of this guy who asked me out through email. I politely declined, and he spent the following week hunting me down day after day, arguing with me over the reasons I declined, saying they weren't valid, telling me why my thinking was wrong, and all the reasons I should say yes. Day after day. I was in high school and super naive and innocent, grew up in a super conservative household, so I would get extremely anxious and panic whenever I would see him coming for his daily arguing with me about dating him. Thankfully, he eventually got the point, and I'm not a pushover anymore, lol.
That sounds really intense. I can't believe he kept pushing you like that. High school can be tough, especially when you're still figuring things out. It's good that you stood your ground, though. People can get really obsessive over rejection. It's nice to hear you've grown stronger since then. It's wild how experiences shape us. Glad you made it through that.
I had that happen on Plenty of Fish back in the day. Dude sent me what seemed like a really nice message, and I was excited. I read on my phone, flip, this was forever ago. I worked with the intention of replying when I got home. Within about 2 hours, he sent me a diatribe about how shitty of me it was to not respond right away. He got blocked, and I was done with POF pretty shortly afterward.
That sounds pretty familiar. People can get a bit intense too fast online. It's weird how quickly a nice vibe can turn sour. I guess some folks just expect instant replies, even when you're busy. Blocking him was probably the best call. Online dating can be a mixed bag. You find some cool people but also some real awkward ones. Can't blame you for moving on from that.
I'm so sorry you had to deal with such a shit pile. Good call on not having him pick you up. I never let someone pick me up because then they'll know where I live/work. And if the date goes south, I can bail. I had a friend who had a guy pick her up for a first date dinner. Don't do a first date at night or a full meal. Turns out he inherited a Nazi uniform and confessed to having an anger problem before they'd even gotten their food. She sent me a text SOS around the time the bill came, so I called and yelled something into the phone so that he could hear. He locked the car doors or something because she sent me another SOS. I told her to have him drop her at my house. Icky to think what would happen if he'd taken her back to her apartment.
That sounds rough. Good on you for having your friends back like that. It's smart to be cautious, especially on first dates. That guy definitely had some red flags. It's wild how quickly things can turn. I think the best move is to keep it casual and public. Makes it way easier to bail if needed. Better safe than sorry, right? Glad she got out of there in time.
I've had to explain to 1 or 2 clueless guy friends why number 1 is not okay. Most of them had an older adult who hasn't dated in 50 years tell them it's polite and expected and blah blah blah. I had to explain that she doesn't want you to know where she lives until she's proven to herself you aren't going to hurt her.
It's interesting how some guys just don't get basic things. Like, they rely on outdated advice from older folks. I remember having a similar talk with a friend about respecting boundaries. It's simple. People need to feel safe. When someone doesn't want to share their address right away, it's about trust, not being rude. It's just common sense to understand that everyone has their own comfort levels.
I had a friend. I'd known the guy for years, but he was always real private about his relationships. He started dating a girl I was friends with. Hell, I introduced them. He couldn't handle me being a part of her life after that. And it was the same sort of behavior. He was controlling, paranoid, aggressive. Never physically, but at a flip of a switch he'd start yelling at her. And he even had his own active timing. He once started full-on screaming at me because she'd answered the phone too quickly when I called her from my phone because we both wanted to ask her about something. I later talked to one of his exes. It was the same thing then too. I don't associate with this guy anymore, unsurprisingly. And she, fortunately, got rid of him before it went on for too long. It was horrifying to see then, especially from someone I'd known so long and never gotten a hint of this sort of behavior. And I'm sorry that you went through what you did.
Friendships can surprise you. I had a similar experience with someone I thought I knew well. He started dating a girl I cared about, and I thought it would be fine. Instead, he became controlling and aggressive over the smallest things. It was shocking to see this side of him. Luckily, she figured it out and left him. It's strange how people can change so quickly in relationships.
An old man used to come into the shop I worked in when I was about 17 or so almost every day. He was quite elderly and walked with a cane, so he tripped over a lot, and at first we all thought he was sweet. Then we noticed that every single time he tripped, it was always when he was right next to a young, female member of staff, and he would always put out his hand and grab their breast as he tried to steady himself. He did this maybe weekly, and we never saw him trip any other time or touch the person anywhere else, like grab their shoulder or something. We stopped standing near him, and sometimes he would ask us to go and get things off high shelves for him, so we had to go over to him. We sent male staff members when we could.
That's a weird situation to deal with. At first, it seems like just an innocent old man, but then you notice the pattern. It must have been uncomfortable for the female staff. Good thing you guys figured it out and tried to keep your distance. Those kinds of things shouldn't happen in any workplace. It's crazy how some people don't realize the impact of their actions on others. Better safe than sorry, I guess.
What is it with these bus guys? I had the same sort of bus friend for a while. He seemed completely normal and friendly and didn't put off creepy vibes at all until one day he goes, "I just have to tell you that ever since the first time I saw you, I just cannot keep my eyes off your chest. Had to start taking a later bus too. Sad face."
That's pretty uncomfortable. It's wild how someone can seem totally normal and then just cross a line like that. I had a similar experience with a classmate who acted nice until he made a comment that really caught me off guard. I just kept my distance after that. It's crazy how some people just don't read the room. Just gotta be cautious, I guess.
I worked at a convenience store for a while, and we always had our regulars. One old guy was a regular to get lottery done. One night, he asked me to do the numbers for him. He leaned in over the machine, motioned for me, as if he had more numbers or something, and said, "Your breasts are beautiful." After that, I wouldn't ring him out or do lottery.
That's something else. It's wild how some regulars can cross the line without thinking. You just try to do your job, and then stuff like that happens. I guess it's all about setting boundaries. After that, I'd probably avoid him too. Just not worth the hassle. Crazy what people think is okay to say.
One time in college, my friends and I were at a party, and this really aggressive dude tried to make out with my friend while he playfully pinned her against the wall. Of course, she refused. Luckily, she has cat-like reflexes because he tried to punch her, missed, and ended up punching a hole in the wall where her head was.
That sounds intense. It's wild how quickly things can turn at parties. Your friend definitely handled it well, though. It's crazy to think about what could have happened if she hadn't reacted so fast. That guy sounds out of control. Good on her for standing her ground. Moments like that can really change how you view a fun night out. Glad everyone was okay in the end.
I've always been into you. I don't even like your friend. I just put up with her to get to you, etc. What I don't get is why guys think insulting our friends is a good way to get us to like them. I was at a bar with my best friend once, and I was sitting in a booth while she stood next to it. Some dude walked up and was like, "Move, I'm trying to talk to your friend," and then proceeded to try to hit on me. How about no?
Yeah, that stuff happens way too often. It's like they think being rude to your friends is some sort of charm. I had a similar experience where a guy tried to brush off my buddy just to talk to me. Didn't work out for him. If anything, it just made me lose interest. It's surprising how some folks don't realize that being nice goes a lot further.
I also have reproductive issues, meaning I will never be able to have kids. My infertility issues has caused me some other medical problems, so I had 2 surgeries back to back, and one of my pretty close friends, but absolutely nothing more, asked me what was going on. I told him, and his response was along the lines of, "Great, so we won't have to use condoms." I understand it is a touchy subject that some people may not know how to react to, but I was only 17, barely knew how to handle it myself and was pretty upset about, and he turned it into a positive for him and assumed that really blew me away.
That sounds like a tough situation. It's always awkward when friends don't know how to respond to personal things. I get why you'd be upset. It's not an easy topic. It seems like he tried to lighten the mood, but missing the mark can hurt. A 17-year-old dealing with that plus surgeries is a lot to handle. Sometimes, people just don't know what to say and end up making it worse.
I'm so sorry for your fertility issue. My husband is sterile as am I, and I couldn't be more stoked about it. I have told my husband that he is perfect for me because he is super hot and can't make babies, but he isn't sad about it, and neither am I. I only started making jokes about it after I determined he wasn't sad about it.
That's an interesting take on the situation. It sounds like you both found a way to cope with it together. Turning something challenging into humor can help, especially when both partners feel the same way. It's nice to see that you can embrace the situation without any negativity. It must take some pressure off, and helps you focus on enjoying each other rather than the societal expectations.
I'm going to comment here, although I can make this comment pretty much anywhere in this thread. I'm gay and did the online dating thing before entering my current relationship of 6 years, married for one. Actually met on a gay dating site, and I met some crazies, but nothing even close to the level depicted in the comments in this thread or the examples you posted. Is this a common experience for women?
It sounds like your experience in online dating has been pretty standard. Meeting all types of people is just part of the game, I guess. It's interesting how different everyone's stories can be. Some people find good connections, while others seem to attract chaos. It all depends on the vibe and how people communicate. Just glad you found something real after the craziness. That's what matters in the end.
Guy here. Towards the end of high school, I had a friend that I'd asked out, but got turned down and kept with the friendship. We were total best friends, and literally all of her friends that ever met me, and her family, wanted me to date her. A couple of times, she'd send a message through a third party that I should ask her out again, but then she'd change her mind by the time I saw her in person the next day. After a few years of this, I start seeing this woman I met on the bus home from work, whom I am now happily engaged to, and when we officially begin a relationship, my friend sends me an email how we normally talked most days in the summer, going off on me about me not respecting her feelings by dating this other woman. It is the last time she ever spoke with me, and while I am sad that that's the way our friendship ended, I also just wish she could figure out how she felt and just go with it.
It's a tough situation when feelings get mixed up. It's clear you cared about her as a friend. It's a shame things ended with that email. Communication can be tricky, and sometimes people don't say what they really want. It's good you found someone else and are happy now, but it's sad when a friendship fades like that. I guess some things just don't work out how we hope.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.